Would you guys rather watch evil kings or evil queens? Queens?
Evil queens, and they're evil.
Because only women can be evil, of course.
Evil schemes. Well, that's a stretch.
Queen Mary the First.
When you come across big bad figures in history, you might wonder if their infamous traits get passed on to their children. In the case of Mary Tudor, daughter of certified neckbeard King Henry VIII, the apple didn't fall far from the royal tree, but not for the reasons you may expect. Little Mary was born in 1516 and was actually the fifth child of King Henry and Queen Catherine of Aragon, but the only one to survive past infancy because babies are fragile. Henry loved his daughter and provided her with a healthy education in music and language with a strong Catholic upbringing. But the problem with his daughter was that she wasn't a son, so she wasn't seen as a suitable heir to the throne of England. Mary, what do you want to be when you grow up? Queen of all England. No. With that being the case, Henry VIII sought to sow more seeds and give the law of large numbers another go. After all, he needs a baby boy to slam on the throne and bear the crown. To do that, he sought to divorce the now barren Catherine for a wife that was a bit more fruitful. Henry then lumbered down to present his case to the manager of the Catholic Church, the Pope. "No way, Henry, them's against the rules," said the Pope. But Henry argued, I'm the king? I'm the one with absolute power. And annulled the marriage anyway. That little act of defiance was a precursor to the English Reformation, which toned down the Pope's authority within the Catholic Church. Instead, Henry made his own church, the Church of England, and put himself in charge, and he was all, nice. He then got himself a brand new womb on legs, Anne Boleyn, who blessed them with a daughter in 1533. Great.
That's not what he wanted.
When he divorced Catherine and started slop-flopping with Anne, Henry illegitimized Mary's claim to the throne and stripped her of her royal titles. From that day forward, a seed of resentment and hatred within Mary took root that would continue to grow for years to come. Eventually, Henry got his heir. Little Edward VI spawned into the world in October 1537, but had connection issues and lagged out in 1553 at the age of 15, a short 6 years after Daddy Henry himself expired. Blech. With no other heirs, there was really only one person who could take the throne, Lady Jane Grey, King Henry VIII's great niece. But Mary was royally ticked off, being all... After gathering a gaggle of supporters, Mary had Lady Jane's 16-year-old dome lobbed off and took the throne. Now in power, Mary's main goal was to re-establish Catholicism as the one true religion within England, since evil Papa Henry played a part in the Protestant Reformation, which diminished Catholic support. To help with that, she went and married Catholic fanatic Philip II of Spain, which was in the middle of the highly unexpected Spanish Inquisition at the time. She also reinstated heresy laws and began her purge of heretics within England. Basically, if you weren't or didn't want to be Catholic, then you could just get out. But Protestants protested her authority. No, it's just one word. Oh, that makes much more sense. With some light pushing and heavy shoving from her new husband, Mary decided to fight fire, with actual fire, by burning people. From 1555 to 1558, Mary had almost 300 people burned at the stake for heresy, truly believing that it was the only way to cleanse England of blasphemous false religions. To her, it was a God-given mission to rid the world of these heretics, and the people of England would realize in time that it was for the greater good. But the only thing that they realized was that she was a few sandwiches short of a picnic. Her scorched earth approach tanked her political approval rating and tarnished the image of Catholicism. She ultimately got down with the sickness in 1558 at the age of 42. Because of her violent antics, Queen Mary I of England is forever remembered in history as Bloody Mary, which is also a pretty disgusting drink.
Empress.
If you want your shot at claiming a throne, you're gonna have to start cracking skulls. Which is what Empress Wu Zetian would eventually do. Empress Wu officially ruled over the Second Zhou dynasty in China from the year 690 to 705. She was known for having extremely high intelligence, strong political competence, and superior ambition. But history overshadowed her strengths with a reputation as one of the cruelest rulers in China's history. Though of course it has to be said that many of the individuals who wrote about her actions weren't exactly huge fans of being politically cucked by a woman. So perhaps some of the stories of her evil deeds are a bit exaggerated? Maybe, but maybe not. Born into a wealthy family with a loving and supportive father, Wu was granted a first-rate education in writing, politics, and music, a privilege not afforded to most women. In her spare time, she favored heavy reading in politics and boring government stuff, which made her more than capable of holding a position in political power, if she was a guy. But opportunity would soon come a-knockin'.
Should've picked male
At just
birth.
14 years old, tales of Wu's intelligence and beauty made it to the imperial palace, and she was formally summoned to become an imperial concubine under Emperor Taizong. This basically meant that she was now one of the emperor's glorified slam pieces, but Wu knew that she was destined for greater things. Every journey starts with the first step, after all. The main duty of a concubine was to convert these into these. But Wu never did that. Instead, she would often find ways to openly discuss political affairs with the emperor, something that was certainly frowned upon for someone in her position. The emperor eventually went forever sleepy-bye, and his heir, Gaozhong, took the throne. As a side note, when an emperor died, any assigned concubines that produced no children were sent to become Buddhist priestesses, which is what happened to Wu. But Gaozhong summoned Wu back to the palace. This led to the belief that the two had a history of doing a little woohoo. Who? Wu. Not you. Now in the proud position of top-ranking concubine, it was time to climb higher. Her target? The Empress herself. Gaozhong's primary wife, Empress Wang, was a bit barren in the bush, and thus wasn't so good at the baby making. So, Wu showed her a neat party trick and shot out 4 boys and a daughter, an act that gained strong favor with the emperor. Even Empress Wang herself adored the children, especially the newborn daughter.
What a power move,
how cute is she? I know, right? You killed my daughter. Yeah, Wu allegedly demolished her own infant daughter and blamed it on the Empress, even going an extra step and accusing the Empress and her mother of evil spooky witchcraft. And you know what? Gaozhong believed it. So Wang is demoted, and Wu is made Empress, and immediately has Wang whacked for good measure. But this wasn't a normal execution. According to some sources, Wu had the ex-Empress's limbs cut off and her remains placed in a vat of wine. And here's is our house specialty. I can already tell that this is gonna have a nice body to it. Gaozhong continued his rule for several years, but historians believe that Wu was pulling most of the strings, strengthening ally relations and executing or banishing political rivals behind the scenes. While Gaozhong then kicked the bucket in 683. With plenty of eligible sons, surely a new emperor was around the corner. Except, no. Apparently, there are allegations that Wu had banished many of the princes and even had the crown prince poisoned. While she did have 2 sons serve as emperors, she remained the puppet master, just like with Gaozhong. But in 690, sole power was given to Wu, and she was now the Empress Regent, holy and divine ruler of all China. Now in power, the only way anyone could take it from her would be from her cold, dead, wrinkly hands. Across the years, many rebels and rivals took that challenge, lashing out in attempts to usurp her throne, but none were successful. She even exiled one of her own sons after his wife spoke out against her. Any and all rebels were quickly eradicated. Despite her aggressive and manipulative climb to power, Empress Wu actually ruled very peacefully. She strengthened many relationships with allies, progressed gender equality, and eased taxes on peasants, allowing agriculture to flourish. Because of her constant vigilance against enemies, China experienced very few military engagements during her reign. So yeah, since she had a pretty good run as Empress, it wouldn't surprise me if tales of her wrongdoings weren't completely fabricated or at least overly exaggerated as a way to sway public opinion. The Empress fell ill in 705 and was forced to give up the throne to her son. She died shortly after. When discussing violent history, Madagascar may not be the first thing that comes to mind. But this forgotten stepchild of an African island known for vanilla and bad movies was once home to the kingdom of Emiru and the Merina people. In the 1800s, the throne was occupied by Queen Ranavalona I, sometimes referred to as Ranavalona the Cruel. A name like that is often earned, like Barry the Bashful or Dave the Dickless. With her reign saturated in the blood of her own subjects as well as foreigners, it's easy to understand why she earned her reputation as a merciless and brutal monarch. It all started way back with humble beginnings. Little Rana was actually born a poor peasant girl with an equally poor peasant family. As such, she had a bleak future just chock full of peasant things ahead of her. God, they were poor. But fate had other plans in store. Rana's destitute dad had casually stumbled upon a plot to assassinate the king at the time, and quickly warned him of the impending doom. After narrowly avoiding a classic comedy death, the grateful king demonstrated his gratitude by adopting Rana into the royal family and marrying her off to the prince. Now, Rana is royalty. Sweet deal, because it could have just as easily been like, Your Majesty, I just found these plans to have you assassinated. Good work, little peasant man. I would pat you on the head, but you're just too dirty. Also, I have to kill you as a safety precaution. Oh, you understand. Nice guy. Oh yeah, real nice guy. Fast forward a bit, the king eventually dies, Rana's hubby prince becomes king, he dies, and then in 1828, the now 50-year-old Rana seizes the palace for herself, murdering any and all royal family members so that no one can even think of contesting her newfound power.
Like,
sure,
with her
she's
own
powerful
hands.
and all, but can she make your subscribe button glow? I didn't think so. You should click it.
I'm
One
ready
of
to
her
subscribe.
first orders as Supreme Mega Ultra Ruler was to establish Madagascar as a self-sufficient nation. In doing so, she told everyone else to go kick rocks, pound sand, and touch grass, because Madagascar is a strong independent nation who don't need no foreigners. Oh yeah, she kicked out all of the foreigners too. Go on. To fully eliminate all outside influence, she had any colonials stripped of their titles, completely nullified all treaties with smelly Europeans, mainly the French, and straight up
heck?
banned Christianity. Sorry, Jesus. Keep
Damn.
hanging in there, buddy. Queen Ranavalona sent Madagascar back into the Dark Ages,
Banned
and good old
Jesus.
tradition was back on the menu. Even the justice system was completely uprooted. Forget your run-of-the-mill witnesses, evidence, and testimony. That's boring. Instead, we have this. The trial by ordeal. Simply chug a frothy cup of poison seasoned with goopy chicken skin. If you throw up, you're innocent. So the French were all sacre bleu about Madagascar's
sense to me.
isolationism, because they kind of wanted to grab a piece of that landmass. So they tried to do just that, but the queen was all, no, don't touch, and kept fighting off the invaders. In 1835, the French made a really big push to take the island, but they were swiftly defeated and had to escargot the heck back to Europe. But to really drive home the idea that Madagascar was off limits, Queen Rana had the heads of French soldiers placed on pikes and littered around the beaches. This caused any would-be invaders to think twice lest they be converted into a pretty cool Halloween decoration. With outside influence now null and void, it was time to focus inward. The people of Madagascar were taught the importance of self-sufficiency. As such, they would only produce what they needed to survive and prosper. So they made guns, and bullets, and alcohol. Hell yeah.
Yay!
Infrastructure and factories were
Just
built
like
using
Texas.
mandatory labor. This was the kind
That's
of
what I'm
tax that
fucking
citizens
talking about.
paid through sweat and tears. After all, them things ain't gonna build
My
themselves.
brothers.
As for the Christians on the island, they were executed,
that
either by being
Obi-Wan
hucked off
Kenobi?
ledges, burned, or by using a colorful
Obi-Wan
method of
Kenobi.
progressive amputation. Not a good time or place to be a
Jesus.
Christian. Many citizens were outraged at what the kingdom was
was
turning into
Qui-Gon.
and attempted to
Qui-Gon
remove
did
Rana
that.
from the throne. Keyword being attempted. With all of this violence
I was
and
close.
lower quality of life, not to mention various diseases, the population took a nosedive. Some sources claim that between 1833 and 1839, Madagascar's population of 5 million fellas was cut down to just 2.5 million.
What the?
Not a good
Wait,
stat
she
to tack
kinda
onto your
sucked.
legacy. Rana reigned
What
for
the heck?
33 years before honking her last shoe in her bed in 1861. To her credit, she did keep colonial rule at bay while building up her own kingdom. She just, killed half of her country. Yes, I know Elizabeth Bathory wasn't a queen. She was a countess, but her story more than makes up for it. So,
I feel like I know this one.
as I said, Elizabeth Bathory was a countess in 16th century
Wait, is this the-
Hungary
never
with
mind, I'm not
quite
gonna
the dark
spoil
side
it.
to her.
I think I
She
know
is
what it is,
arguably one of the most prolific serial killers in all of known history. Horrific to many, wifey material to some. Now, I'll acknowledge that some
To
scholars
who?
believe
What the
these
fuck is he
accusations
talking
to be
about?
completely fabricated and merely a smear campaign against her image. But we like to have fun here. So, little Lizzie was born into a rich and powerful family and forcibly engaged to this geometric
is wrong
anomaly of a
with you
human,
guys?
Count Ferenc Nadashti,
What the
at
heck?
just 11 years old. Don't worry, he was 16. This move was one concocted by both of their families as a way to combine each other's wealth and influence, and it worked. However, being all rich and powerful meant that you didn't really have much to do but sit around and be rich. So sometimes you gotta numb that perpetual emptiness with a little bit of purpose. When we fast forward to 1602, rumors began to circulate
case is
amongst
that?
the Hungarian population about the Countess's brand new hobby, murdering children. You see, Elizabeth Bathory was accused of torturing and killing hundreds of innocent, wide-eyed, rosy-cheeked girls with the help of her 4 servants. But why, you ask? Some believe that she harvested the young girl's blood for eternal youth, bathing in it as a nightly ritual, like some kind of Hollywood elite. But there is zero solid evidence even remotely hinting that she ever really did this. In fact, those rumors didn't circulate until 100 years after her
Oh, but
death.
that's
Others
no
believe
fun.
that she just liked doing it for the thrill of it, which is much more plausible. Messed up, but plausible. Her early victims were mainly adolescent peasant girls. With the help of her 4 servants, whose names look like they belong in an NHL hockey team, Elizabeth carried out the gruesome murders. I mean, these were nasty, so here's your warning. Victims were commonly beaten to death to the point of their bodies bursting open, with one particular victim struck over 500 times. Others were reportedly pricked with needles and stabbed all over their bodies. In the winter, some girls were dunked in a nearby creek on cold, chilly nights and left to freeze. In the summer, others were covered in honey and left to be a feast for the flies. Elizabeth herself enjoyed putting red-hot metal rods on or in her victims. In 1609, Elizabeth opened up a boarding school for young girls of noble birth. Dozens of girls entered this school, but none were ever seen again. And this was the tipping point. You see, no one really bats an eye when peasants disappear, but when it's rich girls? No. That changes things. And now more people got involved, all the way up to the Hungarian king, who ordered a formal investigation. After a year of gathering hundreds of potential witnesses who claimed to have seen Elizabeth and the gang disposing of corpses, they were all properly arrested in 1610. Afterward, the accomplices testified separately, providing known body counts and horrific details of the deed.
Wait, so it was
even
real?
cross-confirming each other's stories. Because of this, historians believe that their testimonies are true recollections of the horror. Elizabeth is often pinned with the body count of over 600 victims. But that's just crazy. In reality, historians believe the real number to be much lower, probably only around 300.
Oh, only 300!
That's still a lot. All 5 were tried and convicted, with only 3 of the 4 accomplices being executed. Elizabeth avoided the death penalty, but was ultimately imprisoned within her very own dungeon, with limited contact to others for the rest of her life. A life that lasted only 4 more years. And that's the end of her story, but not the end of yours, because here's another video. So do the stuff and the thing, and I'll see you over there.